Curiously, these songs were massive worldwide hits, yet they disappeared without us noticing. They had beautiful melodies and unforgettable lyrics. Still, they stopped playing on the radios. Today, we're rescuing 10 incredible songs from the 1960s that you probably forgot. These were the songs that defined their era, that made people dance and dream, that changed the landscape of rock and roll forever. Some reached the top of the charts, others sparked movements that would influence generations of musicians, yet somehow they got lost in the shuffle of time, buried beneath bigger names and flashier trends. We're going to bring them back. We're going to remind you why they mattered. Get ready, because it's worth listening to them again. These are the treasures that deserve to be remembered. Let's begin. Number 10. Kicks by Paul Revere and the Raiders. In March 1966, Paul Revere and the Raiders released Kicks, one of the most successful anti-drug songs of the entire decade. This song came at a pivotal moment in American culture. Written by the legendary songwriting duo Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil, who had created countless hits for major artists, Kicks was born from a deeply personal place. Mann and Weil wrote this after witnessing their dear friend and fellow songwriter Jerry Goffin struggling with serious drug addiction that was destroying not only his career but his marriage to Carole King as well. They poured their genuine concern into every single line of this song. The lyrics told a story of someone pleading with a girl about the real dangers of drug addiction. The narrator warns her that soft drugs inevitably lead to harder drugs, that substance abuse destroys lives and dreams. The song peaked at number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100 in May 1966, selling over 500,000 copies within just 2 months of release. It was a massive hit that seemed to resonate with audiences everywhere. What made Kicks truly remarkable was its timing and its message. Released at the height of the psychedelic era, when most musicians were celebrating drug use or at least promoting experimentation, Paul Revere and the Raiders stood firmly against the tide with this powerful anti-drug statement. They delivered a serious message with style and musicality, not through preaching or lecturing, but through genuine artistry. Despite this massive success, Kicks gradually faded from mainstream consciousness as the counterculture movement emerged and rejected establishment values. The emerging counterculture saw Paul Revere and the Raiders as part of the establishment that they were rebelling against. Yet every time we hear Kicks, we're reminded of a moment when a great song stood for something important and challenged the prevailing culture. Number 9. 96 Tears by ? and the Mysterians. 5 young musicians from Michigan formed a band led by a mysterious and eccentric figure who called himself ? He claimed to have been born on Mars and said he had lived among dinosaurs in a past life. He insisted that voices from the future told him he would perform 96 Tears until the year 10,000. Whether you believed his outlandish claims or not, there was no denying that he and his band had created something truly special. In April 1966, they recorded 96 Tears at a small, obscure studio in Bay City, Michigan on the tiny Payagogo Records label. A label that virtually nobody in the music industry had heard of before. The distinctive organ riff played by Frank Rodriguez on a Vox Continental organ became the song's unforgettable signature sound. The organ tone was piercing and repetitive, revolutionary for rock radio at that specific moment in time. Built on simple musical foundations, just oscillating between the I and 4/7 chords, the genius of this song lies in how that simplicity was executed with such raw power and conviction. ? Stuttering vocal delivery, the bare-bones minimal lyrics, and the deliberately low-fidelity production all combined to create something absolutely primal, hypnotic, and unforgettable. Every element worked together perfectly. In October 1966, something remarkable happened. 96 Tears reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, knocking the Monkees' Last Train to Clarksville out of the top spot. A garage rock song from an unknown band from Michigan had topped the charts, beating out established superstars like the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Elvis Presley, and Dionne Warwick. The single went on to sell over 1 million copies and was certified gold, earning the band a place in music history. Yet after this incredible peak, the band never had another top 40 hit. Their follow-up single, I Need Somebody, reached only number 22. They were quickly overshadowed by bigger acts emerging in the late 1960s. Their second album largely disappointed commercially. Today, 96 Tears is considered one of the most important garage rock songs ever recorded and has been credited with helping to launch the entire punk rock movement years later. Number 8. She's Not There by the Zombies. In 1964, a group of teenagers from Hertfordshire, England, won an important battle of the band's contest that led directly to their first professional recording session. They were all just teenagers at the time, still finding their way in the music industry. The Zombies were signed to Decca Records, the exact same label that had famously rejected the Beatles just a few years earlier. Decca was desperately trying to rectify that monumental mistake they had made. The band desperately needed original material for their recording session, but none of them had written much before. They were inexperienced as songwriters, but facing one of the biggest opportunities of their young lives. Keyboardist Rod Argent took on the challenge of writing a song. He crafted a minor key, jazz-tinged composition that was absolutely unlike anything else in rock and roll at that particular time. He built the song on his distinctive electric piano, specifically a Hohner piano, and arranged three-part vocal harmonies in a folk-influenced close harmony style that was both sophisticated and emotionally powerful. Colin Blunston delivered the vocals with ethereal beauty and fragility. His youthful voice perfectly captured the melancholy of lost love and emotional distance. The song's lyrics told the story of someone who is admonishing their friends for not warning them about a particular girl who lied and hurt people. The genius of Argent's songwriting is that the narrator isn't desperately begging the girl to come back or speaking directly to her. Instead, he's accusing his so-called friends of knowing her true nature and not telling him. The song drips with bitterness and resignation mixed with melancholy. Released in July 1964, it reached number 12 in the UK and climbed to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 by December. The Zombies seemed absolutely destined for major stardom and a long, successful career. However, despite their successful debut, they struggled to replicate that initial success in subsequent releases and were quickly branded as one-hit wonders. The pressure mounted. Just 3 years later, in 1967, they disbanded after releasing their final album, Odyssey and Oracle, which went largely unnoticed at the time. Decades later, that album gained substantial cult status and is now considered a lost masterpiece, often compared to the Beach Boys' famous Pet Sounds. Santana covered She's Not There in 1977, reaching number 11 in the UK and number 27 on Billboard, which introduced the song to entirely new generations. The Zombies eventually reunited and were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2019. Today, She's Not There ranks number 297 on Rolling Stone's list of the 500 greatest songs of all time. Number 7. I Can't Explain by The Who. January 1965. The Who burst onto the British rock scene with I Can't Explain, written by Pete Townshend when he was just 18 years old. The recording featured a young Jimmy Page on rhythm guitar, the future Led Zeppelin member. Townshend delivered the main riff while Roger Daltrey provided furious vocals, John Entwistle pounded the bass, and Keith Moon hammered the drums. The song reflected pure teenage frustration, the inability to express emotions with simple words. The lyrics were straightforward. I can't explain. I think it's love. It reached number 8 in the UK, establishing The Who as a new force. Over the years, I Can't Explain was overshadowed by hits like My Generation and Won't Get Fooled Again. Yet 50 years later, it still transmits that universal feeling of not being able to put emotions into words. Number 6. Hush by Deep Purple. Before becoming icons of heavy metal, Deep Purple took a country soul song written by Joe South and completely transformed it in 1968. Guitarist Ritchie Blackmore hardened the guitar lines while organist John Lord played his Hammond B3 almost like a percussion instrument. The combination created something entirely new, psychedelic energy combined with irresistible rhythm. Recorded in May 1968, The song reached number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100 that summer. Rod Evans's vibrant vocals delivered the message with youthful exuberance. Hush was a bridge between psychedelia and the heavy metal sound Deep Purple would pioneer. Over decades, it was eclipsed by heavier songs like Smoke on the Water. Yet it remains a classic of 1960s rock, showing the band's hunger to prove themselves. Number 5. Crimson and Clover by Tommy James and the Shondells. By late 1968, Tommy James wanted to leave behind lightweight pop music and create something ambitious and different. The song's title came from 2 words that simply sounded poetic. They wrote a track completely different from anything before. Using 16-track recording technology, they created guitars filled with tremolo effects. A clever production trick passed Tommy's vocal through an amplifier to make it sound undulating and ethereal. A preliminary version leaked to a Chicago radio station, and the response was so enormous that the label released it immediately. In February 1969, Crimson and Clover reached number 1 in the United States and several other countries, selling over 5 million copies. The song marked a turning point. Tommy James and the Shondells fully embraced the psychedelic era. Over time, it was eclipsed by more influential psychedelic artists, but it remains a perfect snapshot of that moment. Number 4. 8 Miles High by the Byrds. In 1966, the Byrds looked for new ways to express themselves after merging jangly guitars with folk sophistication. Written by Gene Clark, David Crosby and Jim McGuinn, 8 Miles High was inspired by the band's first airplane trip to London. Clark wrote the lyrics looking out the window at the grey city and confusing signals below. Musically, it was a significant leap. The bass line was inspired by John Coltrane's jazz work. Roger McGuinn's 12-string Rickenbacker imitated Indian ragas and jazz saxophones. The result didn't fit neatly into one genre. Folk, rock, psychedelia, and world music merged together. Released in March 1966, it reached number 14 on Billboard. However, controversy emerged as many radio stations banned it, interpreting High as a drug reference. Gene Clark left the band shortly after. Today, 8 Miles High is recognized as one of the first great psychedelic rock songs and influenced countless musicians. Number 3. My Girl by The Temptations. In December 1964, Motown launched My Girl, written by Smokey Robinson and Ronald White, specifically for David Ruffin's grave and velvety voice. Recorded at Hitsville, USA in Detroit, the song featured James Jameson's iconic bass opening, those 3 notes everyone recognizes immediately. Robert White's elegant guitar combined with the group's creative harmonies. When released, the song gradually grew until reaching number 1 in March 1965. More than chart success, My Girl crossed racial barriers during segregation, becoming a universal anthem of joy and optimism. Over time, the soul era was overshadowed by rock's explosion and My Girl stopped dominating radio. Yet decades later, each time we hear it, we feel exactly what the song promises, that even on cloudy days there's a ray of sunshine. Number 2. Twist and Shout by the Isley Brothers. In 1962, the Isley Brothers recorded Twist and Shout, a song that captured the spirit of the twist dance phenomenon sweeping America. Originally written by Burt Russell and Phil Medley, the song was delivered with raw energy and infectious enthusiasm. Ronald Isley's powerful yet playful vocals encouraged listeners to dance and celebrate. The arrangement featured driving percussion, punchy horns, and a rhythm section that made the song irresistible. It reached number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 and became a fixture at parties and clubs everywhere. Young people danced to its infectious beat. The Beatles later recorded their own version, but the Isley Brothers' original remained definitive. Over decades, Twist and Shout faded from constant rotation as other dance songs emerged, yet it remains an important document of the 1960s pop culture, proving that great rhythm and genuine fun never go out of style. Number 1. House of the Rising Sun by The Animals. In 1964, during the British invasion, 5 young men from Newcastle transformed an old folk ballad into one of rock's greatest anthems. Songs like Woody Guthrie and Bob Dylan had sung it, but the Animals electrified it with a haunting organ and Eric Burdon's devastated voice. They had been playing it live as Teleneros for Chuck Berry. The crowd's response was so intense that producer Mickey Most took them to the studio. On May 18, 1964, they recorded it in a single take. What you hear is exactly what they played in those magic minutes: raw, immediate, and perfect. Hilton Valentine's arpeggiated guitar was beautiful. Alan Price's box organ was mesmerizing. Burdon's interpretation transformed the tragedy of a place in New Orleans into a hypnotic experience. The song reached #1 in both the UK and United States, becoming the first major British invasion hit outside the Beatles and opening the door to folk rock. Dylan himself was impacted hearing it. Over time, the band was eclipsed by giants like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. Many remember House of the Rising Sun only upon hearing it again. Yet decades later, this classic sounds as if time never passed. These gems of the 1960s proved that even incredible songs can fade from constant memory. Still, they endure, proving that true quality transcends time itself.